Коллеги, добрый день.
Colleagues, good afternoon. We start our session, and I hope that someone else will come, some other listeners will come. And today we'll speak about what is going on in oil and gas sector, how new technologies can change it. It seems maybe that oil and gas sector is very stable, traditional, but not so much. It's very high-tech industry, which always needs to respond to new challenges, long-term challenges linked with depletion of traditional reserve, coming to, different other advanced types of production. Here we speak about low permeable collector, reservoir, and earlier it was not profitable to extract such oil because of the price maybe, or because of the lack of equipment. And the second factor, this is market size. Now, in 2008, 2014, prices for oil declined. Then there was growth of price, and companies have to be flexible to know how to correct their own investment plans and make decisions on how to develop further in the conditions of such cycles, but without any, evident cycles. So within 6 months, we have an increase in prices, but we have uncertainty. That's why oil and gas companies have to take retain expenses. Under the conditions of such uncertainty, they have to learn about how to increase efficiency, also application of new technologies, and maybe digital, which to some degree can allow to increase flexibility. And so the topic of what technologies are priority, and so it's interesting for developers and companies. We'll speak with some guests who are present here. This is Deputy Director Power Zarubezhneft, Mr. Sinugin, the General Director NTC Tatneft, Alexander Minich, the Head of Exploration, this is Maxim Bardin, Gazprom Neft, then Geonaft, Yuri Petrakov, Technical Director, and Evgeny Malyavko, Technical Director of the company GeoSplit. We now can look at the situation as from the point of view of companies who offer services and companies who use this who do production, and we'll see how this overviews can be closed. The first question to Vyacheslav Zarubezhneft: what are the main technologies which can play a key role in digital transformation of the companies in short-term and in long-term period till, for example, 2030? Thank you very much for the question. Good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, I would like to note technologies. This is very dynamic, what technologies. And each year there are certain cycles of looking at technological problems and challenges. And then we choose a set of technologies which is essential now for this period of time. I would like to answer these questions bearing in mind 3 basic directions. The first direction is linked with traditional realization of a program of innovative development. In particular, we realize such program during several years, and we receive a high estimation from the Commission. among the state companies. And inside of this program, we have a lot of technologies which can solve very important problems and which can increase efficiency of business, first of all, so decline of costs. And among such examples, I can give you example of one technology which we started to develop last year. It's very important to have partners, good partners also. And this is the technology of catalytic thermolysis that is linked with the problem of oil viscosity and also pumping of catalyzer and development of catalyzer. Last year, we received the grant to realize this program, and together with our partner, this is Kazan University, it's our partner, scientific partner, and we started to realize this program. And also we even started to apply this catalyzer in the formation. We give the first good results and have good responses on the problem which work and which is important for the company. The second, digital transformation. Those tools which we have inside Digit and technologies inside Digit, which today are really popular. Here I can speak about AI, elements of AI, the first projects in the sphere, and of course they're quite pragmatic. We want to increase economic efficiency, for example, search for mist formation with the help of neural networks. In this case, we can find some mist parts. In this case, we can enhance oil recovery. And the last direction, which is hybrid, may be very promising, where we can have some kind of frontier, a little bit maybe ambitious. So again, we have to monitor this frontier, which is quite further and quite important. So we look at all projects from the point of their economic efficiency. And as an example, I can speak about the project on, for example, production of lithium out from commodity water. We are looking also for partners. We have the vision of economy in this area. We need partners, technologies, and also one of the possibility of today's discussion is to find such partners. Maybe we can have already discussions. Okay, as a moderator, so we speak about digital technologies, and also I heard the word grant. I will speak about the tool which we are now developing. These are grants to realize pilot projects in digital area. 500. So regulation 505. When we give a grant, not a startup to a big company, but which is linked with a startup, but not R&D, but realization of pilot projects. I hope that the representatives of large companies will be interested in this, and they will use this tool of support. And maybe developers also can offer interesting solutions, in particular what you were speaking about, and AI technology, which also can be in oil gas sphere. This is only one of the examples, but there can be so many different possibilities. And I think that such things could be developed between developer and customer, and we can overcome these difficulties which are linked to the first implementation, when not even all large companies can take risks. And large companies can use grants and tools, and in this current situation, I think this is right. So it seems that this tool can be workable. I believe that we will come back to this point. What digital technologies can be implemented Also, we have company developers. They also present the direction linked with digital technologies. But now I want to go to our next speaker, Alexander. You represent Tatneft company, the subsidiary company, NTC, not Tatneft, but you are the subsidiary of Tatneft company. What is the balance between research and open innovations? Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much for this invitation. When in our company, when we were developing innovative strategy, we had several scenarios of the company development, from buyer till the end user. So you don't do anything, you just buy the market. But on the other hand, you have all research here in your company. But the most reasonable is a mix, of course. You should have a direction which are applicable to the company, and you have to develop them with your own competencies. And along with this, it's not good to focus only on your potential and not to look at some other companies. So the answer is that there is a compromise between directions, and in our company we know development of oil fields in our region, and in this area nobody can really help us directly, because all these technologies which come, they still should be adapted to local conditions, and without knowledge of resource database in Tatarstan Republic, it's not possible. That's why the answer to this question is the following. We have the approach in two directions. First, we have some competencies we have, some we don't, and in this case we should go to the external market and to find out some other possibilities or symbiosis of joint research. So it depends on the market situation and so whether it's really needed. And speaking about digit, I commented on this. We had experience, by the way, and please think about it. I don't want to say that this is a solution which universal and really suits everybody. We have a project, Digital Twins, for oil and gas processing. And in this area last year, with the help of Skolkovo operator, we filed an application and we received a state support. And it's good. Now we are at the initial stage. I don't know what we'll have at the end, but then still we have a special account. And we need to do a lot of work, and we need to then say how we spend this money. And Skolkovo guys, I know them very well. I have been working here for a long time, so they will ask about every topic, how we spend them. But this tool is very good, and I understand that the main thing is to find good topic, and Skolkovo colleagues will help always, and this is so good. That's why. What else? Yes, you answered this part. Advertised us and our tool. Okay, but any of such work, systematization, when you file a document for grant or for something else, you systemize all your work you have. and you specify this work in the area of commercialization. When you are inside of the company, sometimes you don't see it, but when you really start to work for grants, this helps you to systemize your previous work. And I think that our project became more mature, even thanks to this expert check, maybe. And coming back to the topic of work with market technologies and projects which are not inside of the companies, but which you can find at the market. Economic situation today has changed a little bit. And now we have some complications with the suppliers, equipment, software, and so on. Do you feel or do you expect increase of need in development of Russian companies, which also can become with import substitution? And if yes, what key directions are important for you? Maybe colleagues in the audience also could focus on these directions. Well, so it's clear now that the situation has changed. Oleg mentioned about it, 2014, 2008, 15, and so on. We have had different periods, volatility of prices, different demand, and these all periods also priority has changed, and also in the research area. We had stages when we were all just strategically, we all wanted to increase production and revenue. And all research works, purchases of new equipment, new projects were aimed at more oil. And 2014 we had a price decline for oil, or May 2020 when oil was not bought at all. This changes our priorities, and we stop thinking about increase of production and revenue. We start thinking about streamlining of expenses. And there is nothing. So the company works well, and everything is okay. But these priorities are always a little bit shifted, and companies become to adapt also. The current situation is ambiguous, full uncertainty what will be in the future, because now we can't understand what will be in the future. Everybody's waiting for some certainty. We are not only don't understand what will happen soon, and the main thing is to provide continuous of production. If you produced polyethylene packets, it's better if you have it the same way tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Speaking about us, oilmen, we need to provide oil production, its processing, sale, and as a result, all companies this way or another also used imported equipment, imported reagents, which allowed us to work well. And now the main need for us is to substitute these reagents and equipment technologies, not to have your production stopped, to preserve working places. And in this connection, I can say that it's absolutely clear that you asked me, do we need technologies? Of course. And I think all companies are like this. We have a certain equipment list, reagents, which are extremely needed to have continuous work. And so here we need to have a team which is aimed at having this. There are two ways. Whether you can find a supplier which can do this in the current conditions, for example, Southeastern Asia or Persian. Gulf, someone supplies what you need. Or secondly, you can have really import substitution in Russia. And if we speak about demand, this demand is increasing, of course, for such things. What we faced, our company faced, this is low tonnage chemistry, some chemistry for some oils, chemical agents for catalyzers, and I think that the second big section would be software and hardware for different things. Two bottomless areas which we need, which we have a lot of demand. Colleagues, please take notes. It's very important. It's valuable and so valuable information what will be in demand. And we continue. I would like to proceed to Gazprom Neft, Maxim Bardin. Maxim, we know that you are looking for the technologies at the open market, and together with Skolkovo, you have an accelerator program. Can you expand on it? Do you have some other tools of how you look for new technologies? Colleagues, good afternoon. Oleg, thank you very much for this question. As a company, Gazprom Neft, since 2019, we started to create different tools, and we work with small, innovative companies like startups, and also with other companies. And your formulation, so you know how to find it's not a problem, but how to implement it properly, how to evaluate business effect. This is what really important. What contract should we offer to producers, especially if these are not big companies? So this is a challenge because companies mostly are focused on interaction between vendor and customer. When we speak about small innovative enterprises, startups, this interaction is not possible, especially at the first stages. That's why we create new tools to support such companies. And we now promote them and create, and we try to choose the tool for all speakers, and we try to find our tools. And also business of customers, not always the head of the company who heard your pitch session, your customer, maybe the engineer in the field. And he will supervise you, and that's why Gazprom Neft not only have to create pitch sessions, but also to find interested people inside, which will work with you during the whole period. If we speak about the pre-pilot projects, especially non-digital, this can be half year or the whole year. And regarding the other tools, we are now developing different versions to go through IP, and we want to decline so time, and this should be maybe weekly or monthly periods for the companies, not to wait for our protocols for 6 months. And these are financial tools. When we speak about startups, any initial stage, this is expertise, market, and money. We want to form a whole set, and people should come to us and should to rely on these types of support. Now we have the foundation new industry. We created it with partners for the projects of the early stages. We created this with Start Neftegas Foundation. Our participants can rely on financing. And now we want to develop early stages, because when companies survive till MVP, So a lot of things can change. And this year we'll pilot the system of how to work with early stages. And we believe that by 2023 we'll have a full cycle. And the form of interaction is different, but we can support the project with venture money to preserve all intellectual property, or we can offer different types of interaction with internal special programs which we have. Yes, thank you very much. But the representatives of Venture Foundation are also very active, and the managing partner, Ilya, was here, and I hope maybe today he will also come. Maybe he will go around the exhibition and the most important thing, and Maxim mentioned it, these are difficulties with research, but also with implementation of the projects. Within our accelerators, we try to offer different tools, how to, for example, activate our works with partners. And sometimes we also can have mentors, and mentors are supervise and implement. In some other programs, if partners are interested in this, our employees can go together with you on the fields, to the fields, so we can have projects which were selected, so they can become pilots. So Gazpromneft also developed its own work. Tracking system with projects, how it works, and we know that within the framework of accelerators, especially linked with heavy industry, this external tracker did not work. But we had employees of Gazpromneft, and they wanted to do this, and they had this tracking methodology. In our company, we have about 50 trained, certified people who can work with startup, who can speak their language, and they can convey the thoughts of the company to you. For example, when I face the projects, and sometimes I can see that I don't need this information. I need this effect to see which you can give on the field. And in this case, I can evaluate whether I need to replace the current solution which you have, or is it effective for us? And this is not trivial for us because business process is quite complicated. And when you come from somewhere, it's difficult to understand it. That's why employees help a lot in this. Okay, presentation for investors should not be mixed, confused with the presentation for some particular customer. And the second question, the current situation, how does it influence on needs for Gazpromneft regarding developers, regarding import substitution, and do you have any additional priority directions at which it's well worth looking at? Maybe so you did not want to look at them initially in innovative ecosystem, but now maybe you can have some new niche, and based on the competencies they have, they can offer new products. Yes, I can answer in brief. As all practically oil and gas companies, we have lists of what we need and what we want to see for continuous production, continuous providing. But we can have three key buckets. This is current efficiency of the business, and in this case, we can develop resources which we already have. So in this case, we can find right ways how to develop them. Gazpromneft, for example, now developing some joint ventures, Zarubezhneft, for example. This is the first bucket of technologies. These are challenges of the business which we have now. And within the input substitution, that's also important. It's also the part. Then also those things which are technologies not today will work, but maybe tomorrow. These are very complicated approaches. For example, chemical methods of oil recovery enhancement. We also look at our partners, how they work with this. Some separate spots, like, for example, on shore sites or difficult sites. Also, the developments of of tomorrow, and with our employees, we are looking for how we should apply this. There is robotization, new materials, printers, AI, and we have also internal centers of competition, but also we look at scouting. That's why nothing, even in the condition of 3 months, nothing changed. There are some priorities for the closest needs, but we had 3 directions and we have them now.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, let's pay attention to the fact that we've heard a couple of times about 2 topics. The first one is about how to increase the recovery via chemical methods. And the second topic of interest is indeed robotics and automation and digitalization. Now, I'd like to move on and talk with the companies that I can't really call startups because they are quite mature companies already, quite seasoned ones. And I'd like to start with a company that's been actively involved in the topic of digitalization, which is the company GeoNaft. Yuri, your company offers different solutions that can compete with international software. We are not even talking about the import substitution now, but before the known events, you were also ahead of some other international companies. But you still have some room for capitalization growing, and still we see that you can cover a larger Russian market. Maybe you could tell us about your experience both in Russia and abroad. For example, your colleagues talked about the implementation and introduction of innovations. Maybe you could draw some picture, maybe not the idealistic one. Are there any challenges with the implementation of or rolling out of Russian technologies right now? And what are the measures of support from different development institutions could be of help here? What are the tools that could be used? Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Thank you very much for this question. So our company has been on the market for 12 years. We are Skolkovo residents, and we make use and take advantage of all the tools that Skolkovo can offer us. Definitely, there is a huge room for development, because we do have a lot of plans. You mentioned their capitalization, so there is indeed some room for growth. As of now, our software is installed in almost all large and middle-sized oil and gas companies. 2 main niches that we deal with is geology and geomechanics that is combined with drilling. So inside, internally, we do have both short-term and long-term plans. We try to adhere to them, but also proceeding from the political situation in the country, we try to be flexible and adapt in accordance with the changes that are happening. But at the same time, we also tend to respond to the market trends that we see, at least in this country. As to the international market, indeed, this is an absolutely new direction of development. As of the last year, we were actively developing our business in the Middle East. It's an open secret now. We plan to expand in that region, in such countries as the UAE as well as the Saudi Arabia. We are currently working on it. As to the support measures, well, as of now, in comparison to 2014, well, we had the first geopolitical event that is connected to Russia, and that resulted in some changes. We see the increase in the number of support measures from the government. In our company, we identified two main tools that we actively use. On the one hand, this is the ruling 550 within the Russian Foundation of Technology Development. The first try was a failure because the requirements for the documents are quite strict there. So we failed at the first try, but for the second try, we did it again, and we succeeded, and we got a grant, and we are currently delivering on it. And another area that we are actively working on is the ruling 555. We found a company, a partner company for us, and currently we are finalizing our application package. We do hope that we'll be able to apply and take advantage of this measure. This is about the support measures. Well, generally speaking, I think that despite the government support that we get, we should also be ready to be responsible for ourselves, to balance our P&L. We really try to strike this balance, and we look ahead, we look forward, and we tend to provide the companies with the solutions that they're interested in. Okay, thank you. So could you please tell us about where you've already rolled out and what are the changes when it comes to the interest towards your product? Are there any, or you haven't seen any changes happening in the market regarding your product, and you are working in just a standard mode, business as usual? Well, the implementation of our products was primarily done in Gazprom Neft or Gazprom Oil and Gas. So we did the geological surveying of the deposits, and we were working to identify the areas that could make this process more efficient. And we've conducted some joint works to elaborate on the solutions. And the Gazprom Neft also issued the report on that and talked about our joint solutions. So one needs to understand that even though we do enjoy the presence of professionals in our company, but at the same time we need to listen to the customer, because the customer knows how it's better to do for them. So these combined works and projects indeed play a key role. Well, I believe that indeed you have to identify a qualified customer in a company that first would be able to clearly set the task, and secondly would be interested in the product implementation. So, Evgeny, your company, GeoSplit, is also doing a scientifically intense work in the field of geological surveying based on the monitoring of the shale movement. And you're building the digital twin of an oil and gas deposit. So your company has been developing quite successfully. Perhaps I'd like to pose you the same questions. First, could you elaborate on the successes that you have already enjoyed? Secondly, are there any obstacles to a scalable implementation of your product? Do you expect any increase in demand from the Russian companies against the current backdrop? Right, thank you very much for the question and for the invitation. Before I give the answer, I'd like to go back to our previous discussion. So there was a ruling mentioned, numbered 555. Our company wanted to have some joint projects in this respect, jointly with the Skolkovo Foundation. But judging by our practice, we see that some corporations, the corporate sector, both state-owned and private-owned, they are afraid of this ruling because they have to then submit some large reporting. And so the company Tatneft did have such an experience. They are kind of visionaries in here. Could you please tell us more about it? Sure that it will be another success story, but could you please maybe spread this information not only among startups, but also among the corporate sector? Because it would be really nice if our other oil and gas companies would know about this ruling, 555, and wouldn't be afraid of it. I remember 10 years ago, there were the same kinds of rulings with the universities, and they borne us some fruits. I believe that now it's really nice to involve some other corporate companies in this process. I would also like to comment and add that tomorrow there'll be a meeting with the participation of the Ministry of Energy, with the Deputy Minister of Energy, Mr. Sorokin. So we invited a lot of companies to take part in that, and we also asked our colleagues from the Ministry of Energy of Russia to support this idea and spread the word among the corporate sector. Thank you for this idea, but we've already started to work on that because we indeed see some reserved approach from the corporate sector. Well, I think that we should, it would be nice to invite some professionals in geology to such meetings. Okay, so colleagues, getting back to the topic, our company does the market diagnostics of horizontal deposits for the purposes of drilling. When a company has a good product, it can scale up its business not only in Russia but also internationally. So that's about us. In 2016, our revenue was about 13 million rubles, and in 4 years we grew it by 40 times. 40. So, about our input to the development of the industry. Just a couple of words about the technology, the market diagnostics of the horizontal deposits. Here I need to explain what it is all about, because now we see the boom of the horizontal drilling, and horizontal wells and horizontal holes is a very efficient way to recover the fossil fuels, because some of the deposits and wells are really difficult to work with without horizontal wells and horizontal drilling. Well, one needs to, of course, understand how the flow goes horizontally, and if a well doesn't work as it's supposed to work, then we need to apply some technological solutions. In the past, one had to use some geophysical tools and instruments. This is labor and resource intense. It is not really safe. It is a risky procedure, and a lot of oil and gas companies don't do any research regarding this. I know only one example from the Gazprom group of companies. For each horizontal well, they planned 2 traditional geophysical control. So they wanted to study and research a well twice over its life cycle. So how did we come up with this idea? If we get back to the theory of addressing some designer tasks, we can start with the micro objects instead of starting with the macro objects. So for us, markers are nano and micro objects that demonstrate really well what is going on. They are placed in a horizontal well at the stage of building or stimulation. And to do this research, we take samples of the fluid from the surface and we see the spread, the distribution of these markers across this horizontal well. And in the long-term manner, we analyze this horizontal shaft and provide our customers with information how it's better to proceed with this. So horizontal wells can be isolated from time to time. I mean, isolated, the intervals can be isolated, because if there is some problem with one interval, then it can be just isolated and the other ones can proceed working. So what are the challenges that we faced? First, the very conservative approach in the industry, because if there are some instruments and tools that have been there for 40 or 30 years, but they're not really efficient, then a small-sized innovative company comes and says, okay, we have the solution to your pains. This is not welcomed, actually, but we overcame this. We managed to do this because we can demonstrate how one can verify the technology. We prove that we enjoy the precision of the geological information. We've gone through the certification of this technology in an expert entity body in Russia that deals with these issues, and it can also issue the recommendations to oil and gas companies. They can say that there is a new industrial standard of geophysical control. And the second obstacle challenge that we faced, it's not so obvious. In the past, such technologies as dynamic markers monitoring were quite rare cases, but now it can be done quite often. It's not so costly as it was in the past. And so a lot of companies don't know or don't understand what to do with these new flows of data that are coming. A couple of years ago, we understood that there are such problems, and we decided to develop not only the diagnostics, but we also wanted to develop the system of decision-making. For example, what the geologist should do to be able to integrate our data into some general database. How can they make the speedy decisions across a whole deposit area, for example? And we created such a system. I think it can be viewed as a separate IT product. That's the type of combination that we've got. And so, getting back to the ruling 555, I'd say that we're lacking some instruments that would allow us to establish cooperation between some small-sized innovative companies and large corporations. Okay, thank you. So probably to follow up on your last thesis or statement, I'd like to ask everybody the same question, and I'd like to ask you to respond to this quite briefly. In your opinion, in the current context, what are the activities or what are the actions that can be pursued at the level of both companies and the government to enable the development of this area? Okay, thanks a lot. So one of the ideas is that we should support the tools of cooperations between different companies. So we shouldn't invent the wheel once again. And in this respect, we see that a lot of companies are just inventing something for themselves and they don't share the results with others. We need to, on the one hand, motivate the companies to interact, but on the other hand, we can also just partially make them do it, because this partnership, which could be partially mandatory, could gain or could bear us some results. Okay, so, right, that's very interesting. Thanks a lot. Alexander, what would you say? Well, I actually support what has been said. I think that we will be coming up with quite the same ideas, similar ones. I think that now companies are trying to work in a three-party or four-party formats. We just got a request from the ministry to consolidate our demand, to understand what we need. Because if we do this work, then we will identify clear priorities, and it'll help us to make the next step, which could be working on our joint cooperation in the field of both of production and development. So, kind of an idea of a state plan that would probably be very beneficial for us now. I'm not saying that nobody is doing this work now. No, somebody does it. So, like for example, in the morning I got a request about the equipment from the Ministry of Energy, the request about what we need. And so I will respond to what we need in this respect. I think that this could be a first step that help us to set the targets. Right, I think this is indeed very important, and we'll think about how we can launch this mechanism of cooperation and the demand or needs a consolidation. Perhaps we could do it jointly with our colleagues from the Ministry of Energy. For example, we have a project in innovative technologies. We involve Gazprom Neft and Tatneft. This is indeed inter-sectoral, inter-industry topic. We have a Green Tech Club where we invite the representatives of different industries to address the problems of industrial safety and ecology. I think that there are some bilateral connections already, but we saw that this group thinking and group cooperation is indeed very important. So, Maxim, the same question goes to you. Okay, so I'll answer in two parts. First, talking internally, I think that we should speed up the decision-making, and we have to grant the right to fail, because when we work with startups, one can make mistakes. It's natural, but unfortunately our industry as well as our scientific community trained in such a way that they are fail-resistant. And the second part of my answer would support the words of my colleagues. We are all aware of what other companies are doing. We all know each other. We have the telephones of each other, but we don't have this energy community communication yet. But we started to do this, and we started to work within the same funnels with the TMK and NLMK. Last week we signed an agreement with Rosatom. Currently Rosatom is redesigning its production to scale their capacities. So I invite the colleagues in the industry to be open to this. Thank you. Okay, so probably on the basis of the acceleration program, we could come up with some kind of this community. We could discuss it separately. And the same question goes to the representatives of the developers, designers. Yuri, the floor is yours. Right, I fully support the words of my colleagues. We need to be more active or even proactive to create such kinds of consortiums, because now everybody is striving to minimize their costs, and this kind of cooperation would allow, on the one hand, to exchange their opinions, and on the other hand, to get to some right decisions over a shorter period of time. Thank you. And Yevgeny, you started it. You started the topic of tools that one would need, and you could finalize it now. Okay, so perhaps in this conservative context, some macroeconomic parameters could work. For example, the Ministry of Energy could offer oil and gas companies to integrate their work with small-sized companies. Maybe it could be done not only through grants, but also some tax bonuses for oil and gas companies, because they like it. Okay, so this is the suggestion at the level of the state control. Right, so we could raise this topic at the meetings that we regularly hold with the representatives of the Ministry of Energy. We have just a couple of minutes left. If we have any questions coming from the audience, we can make it happen. Right, Oleg. Yes, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Some of the speakers mentioned some lists of needs or demand for some technologies and IT products. Can you somehow make these lists public in the current geopolitical context? Because it would really help. For example, we develop and design different catalyzers. We've never worked with oil and gas, but I've heard your words, and perhaps we could finalize our products for your particular demand in oil and gas if we know what you need and what are the specifications. So the question is, could these lists of the needs of the industry be made public, at least partially, maybe on the Skolkovo's website or anywhere else? Dear colleagues, anybody is ready to answer to that? Well, the idea is the right one, definitely. That is what I mentioned, actually. We need to categorize this demand that's coming from us. Well, maybe not like really public lists, but we could just have like bilateral relations, and we can exchange our business cards, and I'll connect you to the colleagues that are working with this. I think that our colleagues have already sent out this list of our needs to some institutes, research institutes. All the companies are currently doing so. Well, I'm not sure that we'll be able to publish it on the website. We can give it a thought. Maybe, well, some demands and needs are not really fitting to be made public, but some of them could be. Why not? What do you think, Gazpromneft? Are you for it? Well, we've published it on the website from 2014. Not all the needs that we have, but a lot of them. You can also work via us. Colleagues from different companies have shared with us different lists of their needs and demands, and we can also help with the search. If for some reason our colleagues in the oil and gas companies don't want to make these needs public, but we can act as an intermediary, a contact point. There are also some lists of import substitution drafted by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So there is a special ruling, I don't remember the number, but still, you can find it on the website of the Foundation for the Industry Development. And also you can just approach us. We do have all these materials and documents. Just last week I met with a representative from the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and they've already made a list with what they need. They're currently updating it and refreshing, but probably the list of what they need would be only added, not cut somehow. So in a couple of weeks, I believe we will have the next version of this list, because the Ministry of Industry and Trade also tries to aggregate the needs that are voiced to them by the representatives of the companies. And so perhaps if any of our startups can offer a solution to any of the needs that are there, we can act as a contact point. Okay, dear colleagues, we've exhausted our time and agenda. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, dear speakers, for your openness. I do hope that together we'll be able to move forward, and that we'll be able to establish a close cooperation between larger companies, service companies, and the developers of some independent solutions. I hope that we'll be able to build this chain and to provide for the import of the technologies in need.